I'm joined now by candidate for governor in Florida, David Jolly. Thanks so much for joining me.
Hey, good being with you, Brian.
So, David, we have seen candidates across the country overperform 2024 margins, even previous margins. For example, this past election cycle saw Democrats swing double-digit points to the left. And so, how are you thinking about that in terms of your race in Florida, which frankly is a state that a lot of Democrats have written off because of the way that it's gone for the last 20 years?
Yeah, Brian, you're good because you know how to frame a question. The cycle determines so much about this. Look, you've got voters screaming for change all across the country, right? We saw it in Virginia, New Jersey. We saw it in Manhattan. Frankly, it started in Florida earlier this year. We had two congressional special elections that outperformed for the Democratic candidates by 15 or 16 points. Now, very importantly, that's not because more voters are registering as Democrats. I mean, this is kind of overlooked in the national media. It's not because Democrats are registering more voters, but it's because voters are choosing to vote for Democrats in this moment of great national division, of economic anxiety, the affordability crisis we hear. And so, yes, in the state of Florida, a state that last November in our presidential election and our U.S. Senate races, Republicans won by about 14 or 15 points. We're seeing the state swing back by about 15 points. We've seen it in the congressional special elections. We've got state legislative races that have swung by 21 points. It does appear that the Miami mayorship may actually, the city of Miami may elect a Democratic mayor here within the week. So change is here. And then the challenge for me as a candidate is to build a campaign and to build a new coalition to meet that moment of change. In Florida, that means a coalition that amplifies Democratic values, doesn't dilute them, doesn't change them, amplifies our values in a universe big enough to attract independents and Republicans because voters are now available to the Democratic Party and Democratic candidates like we haven't seen in past cycles.
And what do you attribute that to? I know that the Republicans ran on an affordability agenda only to basically usher in higher prices on everything. I mean, Trump himself promised,
Yeah, sure.
lower prices on groceries, on eggs, on housing, on rent, and now because of his trade war, everything is more expensive. By the way, Medicaid has been cut, ACA subsidies have been cut,
That's right.
food assistance has been cut, so we're going to see those prices rise. But what do you attribute any potential success among Democrats in 25 and 26 to in your state?
Yeah, we got into this race about 6 months ago, laser focused on the affordability crisis. It's a lived experience for all of us, for my family in Florida, for everyone from every walk of life, the retiree, the renter, the aspiring homeowner, or the homeowner. The affordability crisis is hitting everybody, largely presented by access to housing, the ability to stay in your home if you're a renter, or to afford homeowners insurance in a natural disaster state like Florida. Rising utility rates in the state of Florida. We just approved the largest rate increase in American history. Access to transportation. Frankly, in states that have gone to an aggressive school choice program, the choice schools are requiring tuition on top of vouchers. So the affordability crisis is absolutely real. Here's the most important thing, Brian, and this comes after 6 months on the trail. Yes, a lot of people are catching up now. A lot of politicians, even incumbent Republicans, are saying, wait a minute, we know there's an affordability crisis. It's bigger than that. Here's what I attribute the change to. We are losing the middle class. We're losing the middle right now. This is more than an episodic affordability crisis. This is a generational moment where the average age of a first-time home buyer is now 40,
Yeah.
where people's health care could cost more than their rent or more than their insurance, where you're looking to educate your kids but your public school's been defunded and your choice school isn't covered by the voucher. And where the United States appropriately has pursued capitalism. If you consider in a post-World War II economy until now, capitalism also included this blend of responsible social investments, allowing more individuals and families to have access to retirement savings, to home ownership, to healthcare, to transportation, to clean air and clean water. And I think that's where the middle feels as though there's no longer a pathway ahead for them, that these responsible social investments have been abandoned, and that people are now living paycheck to paycheck in a way they never imagined. Upward mobility does not feel within reach. In the state of Florida, 50% of our state does not have savings the last 2 weeks. So, yes, it's an affordability crisis, but there is a root cause behind this where I think it's presenting itself. The anxiety of voters is that we're losing the middle. We're losing the middle class. That is a generational almost 100-year mark, I think, that we're living through. Politicians are just not uh, dynamic or responsive enough to understand that and to address it right now.
So that's a correct diagnosis of the problem, but then comes the hard part, which is figuring out some solution. And so what would your solution be to some of the affordability issues that you just laid out?
Yeah, look, if you look at the responsible social investments that have been a part of American capitalism, it's around housing, healthcare, education, and so forth. So in the state of Florida, we have a property insurance market that has collapsed for homeowners, but also for landlords with rental units and rental properties. We need a state catastrophic fund in the state of Florida to remove hurricane coverage from the private market. Recognize there's no longer an affordable way to cover natural disasters. We've
Yeah.
ignored climate science and climate change for too long. Frankly, we need to return to local control, something that I used to think was a Republican principle, to allow local communities to determine affordable housing, workforce housing, zoning, even some communities that want to figure out how to control rents. Or in New Mexico, you saw that the minimum wage, the income, is now being tied to a formula related to the increase of rents. We could reduce utilities by bringing in clean and renewable energies. We could have an investment in public education so people feel the reprieve from the current choice programs. There are a lot of immediate policies. Now, here's the funny thing. I guess it's not funny, it's kind of sad, but my Republican colleagues call all that socialism now. It
Yeah.
wasn't socialism when Republicans were doing it over the past several decades. I just call it cheaper insurance and better education and more access to health care. I still defend a capitalist system, but we need responsible social investments that allow upward mobility in the way we've seen in generations past.
Yeah. And by the way, we have that system where the state runs a catastrophic insurance fund for insurers that won't cover homes in high risk areas. This way, people can actually live there and make sure that they're insured, and that if something does, God forbid, happen in any of those places, then you're not just completely shit out of luck and left without any home or any prospect in the aftermath of that.
Yeah, you know what's funny on that, Brian? So I mentioned my Republican friends call it socialism. I introduced a catastrophic fund in Congress. I proposed one on the gubernatorial trail. Republican leaders call it socialism. Guess what? In Florida, they have a hurricane fund that Republicans fund. They use it to bail out insurers, not to bail out homeowners.
Yeah.
And they defend that, but they criticize mine as socialism.
So socialism is okay as long as CEOs are the ones who benefit, but if it's regular Americans who get to
That's
benefit,
right.
then all of a sudden it's the boogeyman.
That's right.
What have you heard from people on the campaign trail? I'm especially curious, what Republican voters or independent voters have said
Yeah.
as you've been crossing around the state.
It's a great question. Look, I'm excited. We probably 20 to 25% of our rooms are Republicans or independents. Really, in some cases, when you include independents, even more. We're building a new coalition. There are a couple of elements about that. Look, in Florida, we're ground zero in many ways for the affordability crisis. Republicans have been in charge in Tallahassee for almost 30 years exclusively. We also are a state exhausted by culture wars. Even Republicans, when their kids and grandkids don't want to live in Florida or their snowbird friends don't want to come visit. Even Republicans have said, hey, I used to think Republicans said, we're going to stay out of your bedroom, in your classroom, in your doctor's office. We're going to let people live and love and worship however they wish.
Now it's
Republicans in the last
the whole platform is just attacking
yeah, the
people in
world's
culture wars.
upside down, right?
Yeah.
So those voters are available to us. So, but what do they want to hear from a Democratic candidate? If they're going to consider voting for a Democrat, the important thing is that we solve their felt needs. So, yes, the affordability crisis, insurance, taxes, utilities, and yes, putting an end to the culture wars. The interesting thing for Republicans, sometimes if I get in a debate with a Republican, I'll say, look, I'm just fighting to keep government out of your lives and to make sure you can afford health care and to be in your home. It is what Republicanism used to be when I was a Republican. But the other reason it's working, Brian, is what this campaign is a little absent of, and follow me on this a little bit. I'm not asking voters in the Florida governor's race to litigate the president of the United States. I'm not. We have a U.S. Senate race. We have congressional races to do that. I'm not asking anybody to change their opinion of the president. I have my own. I spent 10 years on TV saying he's taking us in the wrong direction. But this is a race about the future of Florida, responsible governance, responsible administration of the state. Are we educating your kids? Is the economy strong enough for you to have a job? Are you able to access home ownership if you wish? Will we finally expand Medicaid and allow affordable health care? If we focus on that and we say, and oh, by the way, we're going to stop the culture wars and get out of your doctor's office and your bedroom. There are enough Republicans and independents who say, yes, in this race for governor, I'll vote for a Democrat.
Can you talk for a moment about electricity and utility prices in particular? Because I think that's something that people very acutely feel, even despite, these promises by Republican leadership that everything is fine, that the prices are not lower, that in fact we're seeing deflation happen in front of us. And I think this is a problem that Democrats are well aware of, because a lot of us were guilty of doing the exact same thing, or of pointing to macroeconomic metrics as a way to tell people that the pain that they were feeling didn't actually exist. And we're seeing that in full display, on utility prices, for example. They've risen 11% nationwide. And so, in less than a year, people are going to feel that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And this is where the whiff of corruption always comes in. And you can't overlook that. You can't overlook special interest and corruption and regulated monopolies, because most utilities, at least in Florida, are regulated monopolies, and their rates are increased under the approval of political appointees of the administration and the Republican legislature. And so in Florida, we have our utilities have some of the highest profits in the country. It's called return on equity, but essentially the highest profit margins of anywhere in the country. And yet they came to the state and said, we now want to have the highest rate increase in the country as well.
Yeah.
And they got it. They got it. And why? Because the Republican governor and legislature appointed cronies who are defending the legacy old energy monopolies that are providing utilities across the state, instead of actually fighting for consumers, fighting for lower prices, bringing in clean and renewable energies. And so I think what you're seeing is, yes, it is the hurt, the economic hurt, the can I afford all of these expenses every month? That is now a problem for so many families that in the past haven't felt that. So there's the economic hurt. And then you look for relief. And not only in Tallahassee are you hearing nothing from our Republican governor and legislature, but you're seeing them just laugh all the way to the bank. They're taking all the special interest money. They're able to launder money through these unlimited political committees. They're using it for whatever grift or graft they wish. And when it comes to whether or not your utility rates are going up, they're happy to hand out profits to the corporate office and to make ratepayers pay more. People feel the hurt from the economic toll, but they also get the anger when they look at politicians who say, wait a minute, the fix is in and I'm the loser, I'm the victim in this one. People feel that, and that's why you're seeing such anger and such, the voting behavior we're seeing right now.
David, for folks who are watching right now, how can they help your campaign?
Look, davidjolly.com. Obviously, I'm a candidate. I could use financial support. If you live in Florida, could use your vote and all that stuff. Here's the most important thing, though, Brian. I've been in Florida politics for 30 years. I've been involved in a lot of races, not just as a candidate, but also as a consultant. My wife and I have 2 young kids. I would not be in this race if I did not know that Florida is within reach for a statewide Democratic candidate. I'm going to do everything I can to build that coalition. The one thing I ask people nationally is watch this race. The polls are already even up. We can win this race. So my ask is believe. Believe that there's a possibility in Florida for historic change, the first time in 30 years. Once you believe, then go to our website and decide how to participate.
All right. Well, I think folks can do both of those things. So I'm going to put the link to your website right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. Best of luck in the campaign trail. Thanks for the time today.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Brian.